Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari. Captain is sleeping underneath me. He doesn't like it when I make sounds while he's sleeping, even though he sleeps directly underneath my chair. So expect some loud snores in the background throughout this video. Every month as part of my TBR game, I create a Dungeons & Dragons inspired character sheet and use that to pick books. Now, not every single thing that I do on there is going to actually give me a book. I also determine what kind of character I'm making through race, class, background, and alignment. And my class this month was Sorcerer. And as you can see, as part of the Sorcerer class, I need to finish or continue 4 series, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. As you can see, this beautiful pink cup back here, I draw a slip of paper out of this cup every month, and that determines a series that I'm going to continue for the month. So that is the first out of 4, and that particular series was something Academy? Shit. Zodiac Academy, which I'm on book 2. So I am going to definitely read this week. I think this is the next book that I'm going to start. This is bully fantasy romance, and everything about this series I should hate, but it was so ridiculous that I ended up enjoying it. Not like 5 stars enjoyment, but like I'll read more of the series enjoyment. At any time I might just DNF this series, but for now we're gonna keep going. No other series continuations ended up on my TBR, so we have to decide. I have to decide right now as I'm talking to a camera what other books I'm going to read. Last month, my TBR game made me take a book off of my TBR, which would not complete a series, but it completes a series to what's published because that book came out last month. And that is Necrobane by Daniel Ford. So I'm going to definitely be reading this. Was very much looking forward to reading it last month, didn't get to. Now is the time. The next thing I want to do is read a middle book in a trilogy because second books in trilogies are always the worst. They're always so boring, and I have a ton of series where I'm on the second book because I know they're trilogies, and I know that I just have no motivation to get to the second book because I'm not going to enjoy it as much as I enjoy the first and third book. So let's read a middle book, and for this I'm going to read The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. And then the final book, I don't really have anything in particular that I'm like jonesing to read. That is such an out-of-date phrase. So I'm just going to use the jar, and it's going to tell me what series that I'm going to read next. Oh, I didn't put the Zodiac Academy slip back in here, but that's probably good because I don't really want to read 2 Zodiac books in one video. This one feels good. I mean, there's like 5 books, 5 slips of paper in my hand, but this one right here, you know I'm not cheating because I'm going to hold it up the whole time. This is the Lake Witch trilogy, which I've already finished. So that was, it was a good one because I'm not actually reading that, but not a good one because I'm not actually reading that. Okay, let's go again. We'll pick this one. Have I read this one? Oh, okay. That works. So this is Lock and Key, which is a graphic novel series that I literally started last month. Like, I read the first book last month, so this is brand new into my jar. Graphic novel, very quick to read, sure. I have absolutely nothing to complain about with this TBR. Again, quick recap, I'm going to be reading Ruthless Fae, the second book in the Zodiac Academy series. I don't remember who the authors are, but there's 2 of them. I'm going to be reading Necrobane, book 2 in the Warden series by Daniel Ford. Then The Atlas Paradox, book 2 in the Atlas series by Olivia Blake. And finally, Lock and Key, volume 2 by Joe Hill. Alright, so it's Friday afternoon. Weekend started, work's over for the week. But the fact that I haven't updated you since I started this video on Monday probably says something's up. But before we get into what's up, let me talk about Zodiac Academy. Specifically, I was reading Ruthless Fate for this video. While I really can't give you a synopsis of the second book in the series, I can tell you about the series in general. So Zodiac Academy follows two twin sisters, Tori and Darcy Vega. Now, both of them grew up in the foster care system, had a pretty rough life, living below the poverty line, and when they turn 18, they discover that they are long-lost fairy princesses, and that they are invited to attend a fae finishing school known as Zodiac Academy, and once they graduate, they earn their inheritance. When Darcy and Tori were very young, both of their parents, the king and queen, were killed, and a council took over ruling the kingdom because it was just assumed that everybody in the royal family was dead. The twins were missing, king and queen are dead, it's assumed everybody's dead. Council takes over, and there's 4 people on this council, 4 ruling families, as you will. Now, at this finishing school college thing, it reads like a high school, but because of the sexual explicitness of the story, they have to be at least 18. So I'm gonna call it a finishing school. But there are 4 young men who are known as the heirs, and they are the heirs to the council. They expect to rule when their parents, like, retire or give up their seats or pass away, whatever. These heirs are expected to rule, and they are kind of the hot bad boys of the class. They don't want these fairy princesses coming in and basically ruining their power, taking away their power, ruining their fun. So this is a bully romance, and these 4 young men are incredibly and insanely cruel to these 2 girls. This has, like, just red flags across the board. Physical abuse, mental abuse, attempted murder multiple times, just, like, taking bullying to, like, the furthest level possible. But it's also a romance, so of course the girls, like, have sex with the guys a lot. I mean, who does it? The bullying and everything is not really the only thing wrong with this book. I mean, there's dead naming, there's just homophobia, racism, like, pretty much across the board, everything that you can think of that's bad outside of, like, actual sexual assault. Like, they will get very far into the no consent territory, but they won't actually assault the young women sexually. Like, that's the only line that will not be crossed. Everything else will definitely be crossed. Why am I reading this, you ask? Because it's so ridiculous. Like, the storylines and just everything about this series is so ridiculous that it's very hard to take this, like, horror seriously. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, imagine a soap opera mixed with reality TV, and they had a book baby, and that's what this series is. It's so awful, yet so entertaining. And I read the first book last year, was surprised I liked it as much as I did, and then figured that I'd read the second book and then probably DNF the series, because I was like, I don't know how much I could take of, like, this shit that I normally just absolutely hate reading in books. Instead of that, I read book 2, 3, and 4 this week. And if I didn't physically force myself to stop, I would probably be reading book 5 right now. But I have other things that I need to read. Might I go back and finish out the last 5 books in this series before the end of this month? Maybe. So that's why I haven't given you an update, because I read Ruthless Fae, The Reckoning, and Shadow Princess, and dealt with all of this like horrific, never-ending bullying. I do have to say that the end of Shadow Princess, Tori made me so proud with her decision. It was a very much a you go girl moment. I'm not going to tell you what that decision was, but I really, really enjoyed that moment. I think from here on out, at least my guess is we're probably going to get out of the bully romance and try to be like more like save the kingdom, but I could be wrong. I thought we were going to get past the bully romance after like book 2, but nope. So I read 3 books in a little over 1,700 pages this past week. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Of a series that I never expected to like, but I don't know if this has like gotten me out of a reading slump or if I'm going to have like a book hangover now and not want to read anything else and just desperately want to go back to this like never-ending drama. Do I recommend Zodiac Academy to anybody? No. I mean, if you want literally the most brainless, dramatic BS that's nothing but ridiculous, then sure. If you want reality TV as a book, read it. There's a lot of content warnings in it, but why is this so entertaining? Describing these books to me don't make me interested in the series at all, but now that I'm reading it, I don't want to put it down. Anyway, I have to move on. I read over the weekend but didn't feel like recording anything, so you're gonna get a mass update here. Let's start with The Atlas Paradox, which is book 2 in the Atlas 6 trilogy, by Olivia Blake. This series follows a group of 6 recruits to a secret magical society. In the first book, The Atlas 6, they have all been invited to try out for this magical society and spend a year trying to get in. Only 5 of them will be accepted, so they know 1 person is going to fail out. So it's kind of like magical grad school, I guess is the best way to describe it. I thought book 1 was okay. Not my favorite, but I got it. I DNF The Atlas Paradox. It's just too pretentious for me. These people, probably deservedly, are very, very full of themselves and their own abilities, and I just don't care about any of them and their bullshit. So I DNF'd this. I guess it's another series off my list. Next up, I read Necrobane by Daniel Ford. This is book 2 on the Warden series, and book 3 is not out yet, but I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. The Warden is a fantasy series, and it follows a woman named Alice, who is the first woman who's ever managed to graduate the magic university in the school of necromancy. So there's like different schools for different types of magic. The top one is necromancy. Women are allowed into the school, but not typically allowed into like the necromancy studies. But she is a young woman from a wealthy family, and she's like an excellent magic user. So she managed to fight her way through this. And we get to the beginning of the book. She's just graduated and she's getting her first assignments and expects to be some diplomat or something in a city and gets sent out into the middle of effing nowhere. Which is extra funny because she's noble born. She doesn't know how to survive on a farm or anything like that. And it's kind of a punishment. Like, the old men who run the School of Necromancy don't want a young woman necromancer. So they're punishing her with her assignment, so she decides to stop being a warden, I guess. This series is pretty cool. I like Alis as a character. She's kind of bitchy, and I like bitchy female characters. She's also very powerful, but she also cares. So she tries to be the best warden for this town, even though it's not exactly what she wanted. And she's like, hey, this is my assignment. I am going to be the best warden ever at this assignment because I'm the warden here. There's no getting out of it. I'm just gonna do what we do. Spend the time doing extra study, befriend the townspeople, make sure she's taking care of them as a warden would. The end of book 1 ends on a kind of cliffhanger, not like a huge cliffhanger, like it has a resolution, but but it sets up action for the next book. And it jumps kind of like right in exactly where book 1 ended, and we get through the story. I was worried about this because it's the second book in a series, and oftentimes second books are just filler books, like filling in lore and world building and then setting up the series plot for the third book. This one had its own plot, and it had its own like major resolution at the end of book 2 that also sets up a new plot for book 3. So I was very happy with that. I was pretty interested in this book. I probably give this a 4-star. The only thing that I didn't really care about was about 60% into the book, there was a conflict that began at that point, and that's going to go into the next book, that Alis was heavily blamed for by like everybody around her. And while she does hold a small portion of blame for these events, I don't think she deserved the amount of blame and hatred that she got for these events. I think somebody else did, and that person basically got no blame. So I didn't really like that conflict, but it is what it is. The third and final, or I guess the fourth, the third one I'm talking about in this clip, but the fourth series continuation. We're not going to talk about Zodiac Academy again, but the third or the fourth series continuation for this video is Lock and Key Volume 2. Now this one did feel like filler. The first one was very action-packed and like set up the whole drama for the series, and this one just felt like it was building up characters, introducing new keys, because this is Key House and there's like magical keys all over the house. So they're introducing new keys, kind of setting up some background based off of characters from the first book. I guess I should tell you what Lock and Key is about. So Lock and Key is a graphic novel series by Joe Hill that is about a house called Key House in New England. This is Lovecraftian horror, and there are fantastical doors with keys that open them and do different things. One key opens a door, and if you go through the door, you die and become a ghost, and you can like travel around as a ghost and then go back to your body and come back alive. But there's a bunch of different like really weird Lovecraftian keys. Volume 1 starts out where these 3 kids who are moving into Key House with their uncle because their father was killed in a home invasion, and they're all kind of like, they were all present for this, and kind of dealing with the trauma of that while also dealing with like the evil at Lock House. And then Volume 2 kind of like sets up more of the keys and then sets up that there's a background story to the evil, which we haven't really got into. So yeah, Volume 2 was pretty boring to me, but hopefully it picks up from here as I get a chance to finish off the series. After that, I read 2 more of the books in the Zodiac Academy series. It's an addiction, I tell you. But that's it for this week. I will see you next week in another video. Bye!